Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Steal Our Winners. And we are with the legendary Scott Oldford. Had the luxury of meeting him about 2 years ago at Traffic and Conversion. That was after I saw his ads all over the internet for the ROI method. And I believe we're going to get into some of that, why I saw the ROI method everywhere. And we've become close friends since meeting, and very sharp marketer who's wise beyond his years. So Scott, happy to be talking to you and looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise. I've been seeing your stuff probably it may be longer than you've seen mine, but excited to be here today and share a cool framework and some really cool tactics. So thanks for having me.
Cool. So yeah, let's dive in. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about, so if you're listening to this and you already have an audience, you already have, let's say you have a webinar funnel set up, or you have some marketing that's already set up, you already have leads that's coming in. One of the methodologies that I talk about is the ROI method. And so it stands for relevancy, omnipresence, and intimacy. And so it happened, and I think I shared this story with you before, but it happened because I literally in 2015, 2016, I was starting to produce a lot of content, and it was mostly my ego. I was like, you know what? I just want to get my content in front of people. I only had 100,000 people on my email list. I'd send it, only, 20,000 would see it. And I was like, you know what? I want more people to see my content. Didn't even really necessarily think about the implications. And so what ended up happening, I shifted majority of my marketing spend, like 60% of my money, into showing my current audience more of my content with the right frequency on different platforms and with the right timing. And so what I realized was when you have relevancy, so you have your messaging dialed in, you have your positioning dialed in, people know there's a process like the ROI method, and then you're able to take that and then show that to more and more and more people. So hack people's attention. The more attention you have, the more chance you are going to have that they're going to be like, how does this person help me? I want to connect with this person. I want to buy from this person. I want to join this person's mastermind, or whatever it might be, because essentially attention allows for that ability for someone to be like, oh, I want to be able to further this on. And the last part of that, and of course I'm simplifying this greatly, you can go and see this on my website, is intimacy, which is essentially if someone feels like they're connected inside of a community, if someone feels like that there's a conversation, that there's a two-way conversation between you and your brand, them and your brand, and they feel a connection of values and beliefs, you end up in this scenario where people see you as the industry leader. You create this very, very small pond where you're this massive big fish, because people, you're essentially stealing their attention, hacking their attention. And then when there's enough intimacy, there's almost this transaction where it doesn't feel like it's even a sale to them, and it sort of spins direct selling on its head and makes it more effective. So I wanted to focus on just the omnipresence part. So I'm going to assume that you're good on intimacy and community, all those things. I'm going to assume that you know who you are, your messaging's good, your branding's good. But let's say you have, I'm going to call it, let's say you're trying to get people on a phone call.
And before you go into that, Scott, just to
Please.
clarify for everyone listening, and then also I'm watching, and I also want to make sure that I'm clear. All right. So yeah, the ROI method, relevancy, omnipresence, intimacy, right? And, relevancy is basically they've come into your universe in some way, shape, or form, whether that's, a landing page, that's the promise of some tripwire or whatnot. Basically, you have some content that's relevant to them. And so now you're relevant to them.
Exactly.
Perhaps, or at least the opportunity arises. Omnipresence is about you appearing in lots of places where they end up showing up, and you're not always trying to just sell them. You're actually trying to do the third thing, intimacy, which is having them know, like, and trust you. And
Exactly.
So what we're going to focus on is that middle part, right? The omnipresence part, right? So that, but I think it's important because, most people, you kind of quickly just spoke about it, but I'm not sure everyone, all the dots connected. So you started spending more of your money on advertising your content as opposed to maybe a sales message. And then what happened?
everything blew up. I mean, and literally in the best way possible. I in 2015, I did $500,000 online. In 2016, I did 3 million online. In 2017, I did 7 million online. And I would have done a lot more if I didn't actually, decide that, hey, I didn't want to do this business anymore. It had a lot more potential. But not only that, I ended up, literally overnight becoming, one of the top industry leaders in this little, world that we're in. And my opportunities just were endless. The people that wanted to work with me one-on-one, the people that wanted to join a mastermind, the people that, all these different types of things that just really exponentially allowed my personal brand to do what most people take 10 years, I was able to do in 3.
Wow. All right. So let's get into it then.
So the real point, just to go back to this, is omnipresence is not about being. This is not the strategy that I would say is used by, say, Grant Cardone or Gary Vaynerchuk. Love both of them, but this is based on here's this big pond of potential people, and they opted into your webinar, or they opted into your guide or their cheat sheet. We're going to be omnipresent to only people that put up their hand and said, I'm interested in that thing or this thing or that thing. We're not going to go to anybody that is just in your overall general audience, because it's way too costly to be able to do that. And so the whole idea behind omnipresence is, and I'm going to bring you through, and there's obviously, again, I'm condensing this today for you so you have some stuff that you can implement right away. However, this is really about bringing someone through a behavioral journey to getting them to change their belief systems, to getting them to realize that they need something, to getting them to actually trusting you, and getting their mind, their intellectual mind and their intuition on the same page. And I'm going to stop there and just say this real quick, because most people don't think about this. Your left brain takes care of all the logic, and your right brain is your intuition, which we unfortunately don't know a lot about just yet. And so inside of marketing, most of the time if you cannot sell to both brains, you're not going to get someone that actually buys. If you sell just from the intellectual side, you're going to get someone that overthinks things and so on and so forth. You have to get someone to, analyze their left brain has to analyze the data, has to be, okay, this is a good deal. Yes, this is for me because blah, 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 blah. And then your right brain, which is connected to your belly, what you feel, your intuition, is more susceptible to, oh, you know what? I resonate with that person. I like that person. I vicariously want to live through that person. I resonate with their beliefs and their values. And there's just something that pulls me towards them. And so when we marry both of these, so the main problem in webinars and direct sales is trying to marry both of those in that snap moment, or in that 20 minutes or in that 60 minutes is difficult. You're going to get some people, you're going to get a small percentage of people, but the rest of people being able to get two of those sides of their brain speaking to each other to actually get them to purchase is not that easy right away. So here's what really the strategy is. So using email, text message, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube ads, whatever platform that you can use to be able to retarget, when they come through the door for the very first time, they download your lead magnet, they're in your webinar. I run what I call the first 14-day campaign. All right. And this first 14 days, and now this goes up to 180 days. Today, I'm going to bring you to 60. And if you go and implement that, you're going to see results very, very quickly. I've had people that double, tripled their business, their revenue in less than 30 to 45 days implementing this time and time and time and time again.
Wow. Cool.
So first 14 days. So somebody comes in the door, and we treat, unfortunately, marketing like Tinder, unfortunately. It's like very, very, very quick. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Here you go. Here's the opportunity. Do you want it? No. Okay, goodbye. So what I'm essentially saying is in the first 14 days, and Rich, stop me if you need to clarify on anything here.
Okay.
In the first 14 days, I don't want to pitch anybody anything when they're coming into my marketing. Okay. Now I know that is for traditional marketing sounds a little dumb. But in the first 14 days of somebody that's coming in, I want them to know what their pain and problem is. I want them to know what my process is. I want them to see me as an authority. I want them to have listened to a podcast of mine that I've been on. I want them to be on a PR article. I want them to see some case studies of people that I've been able to help. And I want them to resonate with some of my content, my value, some of the things that I've been able to put out there that are some of my best pieces of content, okay? So in 14 days, if you just went and created inside of Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, if you just create 14 pieces of content, now my recommendation is to do more, but 14 pieces of content that does nothing other but those things that I just said, and you serve that to every single person that opts in to your marketing funnel for the first 14 days, what's it going to do by day 14 that they're actually in the marketing funnel? They're going to recognize their actual pain and problem. They're going to know who you are. They're going to know what you're about. They're going to know your story. They're going to know that you're about results. And they're going to look at you a different way. And when people look at you in the way in which you're positioned, based upon you being able to craft that brand to them and craft that in front of them, and you're able to do it in small excerpts of attention when they're scrolling on the news feed, and they're not like, because think about it, when someone's on a webinar, they know they're being sold to. When someone's on a sales call, they know they're being sold to. Their alarm is up. Their left brain is like, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on? But when they're scrolling through the news feed, you're essentially just someone scrolling through a news feed is trying to get dopamine, is really what their brain is trying to do. And so by scrolling through and having these smaller messages, smaller pieces of content directly inside of Facebook and Instagram, it allows for when you go back and sell on the phone, or you sell on the next webinar, or you sell via email, to make it easier to actually have their right brain and their left brain in synchronization.
Okay, and so
yeah, go ahead.
I'm with, and all right, so well, which platform would you recommend that they start with?
Always, I would say Facebook Facebook and Instagram being the same because they're so easy to double up, and email.
And email. Okay. And then also, all right, so they're like on Facebook or Instagram, let's just take Facebook for a second.
Sure.
They're running an ad. Are we trying to get someone to click on the ad? Or are we just how are we setting up this advertising?
So all these, if you're looking at the specifics of it, you're going to do a reach ad on Facebook, right? Okay. Facebook and Instagram, you're going to set the reach to 1. So they only see it once in 14 days. If you have less content, you can set it to 2, that's fine. Right. From there, you're not going to optimize this by clicks. What you're trying to get someone to do is click the continue reading button.
Okay.
Or getting them to watch it.
So all the content is in the ad.
All the content's in the ad. That's going to do a few things. Number one, you have no load times. So you're not going to lose anybody. Number 2, Facebook, Instagram loves it. It's going to be less cost. And number 3, it feels less scary to someone than clicking off, and then they're like, oh, wait, where am I to? Right. So I found
it's a lot less expensive, right?
Far less expensive.
Right.
Yeah. And so what you're really looking for, all of those ads have no call to actions, like all of them. And so because they have none of them, they're like, who is this guy or who is this gal? Right. And they're going to click into your Instagram profile, or click into your Facebook and be like, oh yeah, I remember I watching that webinar about that. Cause we think that as marketers and as entrepreneurs, we think people care about us way more than they do. Like people have so much going on in their life. They don't remember, 90%, someone could go to a webinar 7 times and think it's a different webinar. People just don't pay that much attention, unfortunately.
Sure.
So that's really that first, stage, that first 14 days. And so what my belief is, we have to make the pain and problem relevant to someone before we then make the process or method relevant to them. So then we can then make us relevant to them, so that finally we can make our solution relevant to them. And it goes in that stage. It essentially goes in that 4 stages of being able to get something relevant enough to them. So they're like, oh, you know what? I'm feeling the pain enough, and I feel informed enough, and my brain is synchronized enough to be able to then lead me into, does this solution, does this offer work? Okay. So that's the first 14 days. So then what I do,
even before you pass on the 14 days. So, all right. So you would start with Facebook and Instagram for sure. The next platform, what would be the next one if you were going to do another one?
So if we're doing email, you can use the same email. You can use a lot of the same emails as you can repurpose a lot of this content. So it's not like you have to create all brand new content. I'd say the other one is I love Facebook groups. You can't play on that one, but Facebook groups are great for this, just for community building. But if you're looking at paid platform, I would use YouTube. Because again, you can play videos that a lot of times you don't even have to pay for. And again, you always got to remember, people don't consume, they look for context. And so most people don't consume anyways. and we don't even care about them consuming. Like, I just want to get their attention for like 3 to 7 seconds so they remember me, and they're like, oh, you know what, I got that problem, or oh, hey, whatever it might be.
And so, just for clarity purposes for everyone watching or listening, when do you begin the selling message?
Right. So that's 14. So
okay.
And there's versions of this.
Sure.
I will say, if they go to your, one of the things I teach, I'm basically teaching stage 1 and 2 of omnipresence. There's 4 stages.
Right.
And so in stage 1, I do that first 14 and then a trigger campaign. So the trigger campaign is if they go on your sales page, right? If they go on your sales page, I'm totally cool putting, testimonials in front of them and the offer in front of them. Okay. And what a trigger campaign is, it says, if action X, do Y, right? Very simple.
And just 2 quick questions then. One, which I forgot to ask, what do you generally budget? And I don't know, like, how you can give me a number, because obviously a number, like, maybe as a percentage to what you cost to acquire or whatever, something like that, that someone should spend on those first 14 days. And then in addition to that, based on the triggered email sequence, does that only happen if they take one of those actions, et cetera?
Right.
So I guess start with the finances first, then.
Yeah. So so from a finance perspective, it is so variable because depends on what audience you're selling to, depends on how competitive that audience is. Because of course we're paying per, 1,000 impressions, to that group of people. So, I'd say this, which is, it is so different because if an ad has a high CTR, meaning people actually click on the continue reading, Facebook's typically going to, make it less costly to actually run that. So there's a lot of different principles that are in there. A lot of the time people spend about 20% of their, entire ad budget or whatever budget on this omnipresence, but you can go up or down based on how much frequency you want, right? If you want to show,
but like if let's say I get 1,000 leads a month.
Yeah.
And I'm paying $4 a lead. Yep. So, my cost like $4,000, like, how, like, just, am I putting 500?
You probably spend about $500. Yeah.
$500. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I can't do I was never great at math. I can't do the math in my head, but I just from experience, about $500.
Okay. So between 10 and 20%. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now it can get way more costly later on.
Sure.
Once you get in stage 3 and 4. Which is where you have to decide, okay, well, what's my LTV and what's my blah, 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 right? It gets far more complicated there. Now, that same trigger campaign, to answer your second question, that trigger campaign and what happens on the sales page, I run that from day 15 to 21, regardless of what they do. Because basically, think about it, the first 14 days, I've gotten their pain relevant, my process relevant, and who I am relevant. That's my idea in my head, right? Of at least the warmest people that are in that group that are going to ever buy. And so what I do is then I shut off all the ads that are about, authority and about giving them value and everything else. And for 7 full days, I'm just giving them testimonials, case studies. Here's what the program is, objection handlers, book a call, get access now, 50% off, whatever your sales strategy is. Okay. For a full week. That's all it is. All their newsfeed. But you've bought enough. If you've been doing this right, you bought enough, good of heart with them.
Sure.
For that to be fine.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're going to get a flood of sales during that time. This happens from an evergreen perspective. And then essentially what happens after that is you do 30 days of omnipresence and it gets more complicated in stage 3 and 4. But essentially from day, say 21, 22 to day 60 or day 50, you would just be, showing them content with lower frequency now. So you wouldn't have to have like, 90 pieces of content in that time. Basically, you want to be showing them like 1 piece of content a day for those 30 days. And then you go back and you just do this sort of situation where 30 days of nurturing with this omnipresence and then 7 to 10 days of pitch, and what I found works best is that it feels like a mini launch, but the whole thing's evergreen and everyone can come into it at different times. And, that creates this sort of momentum inside of your business where there's just sales and phone calls coming all the time.
Got it. And so if, what do you think 14 is the least that someone should start with, or could they start with even less?
I mean, they can
like
start
for it to make a difference. I mean, obviously you could start with 1, but
I mean, I think the biggest difference happens when someone feels like you're everywhere. And so here basically this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to make someone feel like you're everywhere. You're trying to make someone feel like you're probably bigger of an authority than you actually are if you're looking at the stats, right? You're trying to activate that sort of effect where it's like the bandwagon effect, where everyone's like, oh, wow, everyone's going with this person. Everyone's working with this person. We're also trying to, really get them to a point where anytime that they think about the problem, they think about us. Or we're hacking their attention. So they're they're sitting down on the toilet on a Thursday. They had a hard day, and we know they have a problem, and then we pop up again, and they're like, wow, this person. And then, so another thing that's really going to happen, you're radically going to increase the number of people that are going to start messaging you on Facebook and Instagram. That's one of the biggest effects. Is one of the biggest causes that you are now going to have far more people in your inbox asking you questions, saying your content's amazing, all of these different types of things. So does it work with lower pieces of content? Yes, it can. Its effectiveness, the peak effectiveness happens when someone's done this for 60 days, someone's in this for 60 days. And at the end of 60 days, someone is either going to love you or hate you. And they're going to either be a mega fan, or they're going to be like, you know what, this is too much. I'm out. This doesn't resonate with me. You don't resonate with me. I don't want any of this. And so then essentially what, ends up happening is you have a group of people that are incredibly well indoctrinated, know you incredibly well, know exactly what you do. And now they're going to start engaging in your community more, start engaging in your emails more, for the people that aren't ready to buy. And then every opportunity there is to buy, now you're going to get someone on a phone call that you don't have to tell your personal story to. You don't have to tell what the product is, the offer, or the examples, testimony, nothing. The effect this has on webinar, sign up rates for programs, and then actual phone calls is the difference sometimes between someone getting a 10 to 15% close rate on the phone and 50-60% close rate on the phone after that 40-60 days of being in this. It does require, though, and this is where it goes against the grain, it requires you trusting that it's going to work. And you have to do a parallel with everything that you're currently doing that's working, because there is a lag time between putting money in and being able to cash that money back out again.
Got it. And so this is a relatively inexpensive strategy. And at the end of the day, it's really, and it parallels a lot of stuff that I believe in. So, it's probably one of the reasons why I resonate to it so much. And that is really separating marketing from selling. And that, when I think about marketing, it's really helping prospects value what it is you offer. And, in order for them to know, to be helped, they have to know what their problem is. They have to know why your solution's superior, and they have to know why you. So, and all those things can be handled outside of a sales process where their guard is down. So no doubt, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And for someone who is not currently doing this, and wants to start, you mentioned the different types of content. Would you say that there's any specific content that is like, what should be number 1, 2, 3?
Yeah. So if you go to the ROImethod.com, there's actually, it goes into more detail on this, but each it's all free. It's there, but think about it this way. What does someone need? The easier way to think about this is a little bit of just, psychology, which is, what does someone need when they come in the door, right? So there's 3 stages of this. The first stage is, I need to know my pain. I need to know my problem. I need to know the consequence of not taking care of that, right? So that's stage 1. I call that the sidewalk, right? So the sidewalk, that's what people need right from the get-go. Like, if they don't know they have a problem, you're screwed, right? So then the second level is what I call a slow lane. So the sidewalk, people that don't know their problem, don't know their pain, but they're probably experiencing it. People in the slow lane, they've got, they're looking for a process. They're looking for your methodology. They're looking for proof, and they're looking for you to have authority and actually be, valuable to them and valuable on their, the path to the golden goose, right? So that's second, which is the slow lane. And then the fast lane is somebody that's looking for the solution, having objection handling, making sure it's for them, and making sure they resonate with you and your values and who you are and your belief system. People really want to do business these days with people that have the same belief system. Probably always been like that, but even more now. So when you're bringing someone in the first, let's say 14 days, well, what's most effective at being able to get them to believe you? Is it a testimonial video? Actually, right from the get-go, it's probably not. What's more important right from the get-go is for them to believe that they actually really have a problem, and them to, you do like 7 ways to get to this, or, 5 things I learned about blah, 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 blah. And you actually sharing your knowledge with them, and them believing in you by you sharing your content and your message is actually typically more beneficial to get them to believe in you and your brand than, hey, look at all these, cool things that I've done with clients, especially right from the get-go.
Sure.
So it's more of like, what is the experience someone needs to have in order to go from not interested to more than interested?
Got it. And so what do you, for, let's say, let's pick 2 different types of businesses. Just pick a coaching business and then some kind of e-commerce business. To set up those first 14 days, how long do you think it'll take? And what can they, to set it all up, set up the ad accounts and Facebook and Instagram, and any other relevant information that, like, I might not be asking you just because I'm not, a media buyer myself. But how much time do you think it'll take to create all the content, the ads, and then what expected upside do you think they'll get from it?
Yeah, well, I created a program once called, it was like Omnipresence in 7 days. And most people were able to implement the first 14 days in a week by like an hour a day,
So about 7 hours worth of work or so?
Yeah. I mean, like, and that includes
ballpark, obviously.
If you don't have to create the content, probably like 2 hours.
Right.
So it's actually very quick. People get a lot of, the biggest mindset challenge around this that entrepreneurs have is they're afraid to be seen. They're afraid to show up. They're afraid to be too much. So most entrepreneurs, if they don't do it in that amount of time, it's because they have like a mental mindset block around it, or they're trying to be a perfectionist.
Got it. And what do you think the upside is?
Upside, I generally see people, and this is not an accumulation effect. Like you're going to get this up front, and then you're going to get this based on how many leads. So it's kind of like keeps building. It keeps on building. But first month, I've seen a lot of people 2 to 3x their bottom line revenue. Of course, then they have other problems.
Right. Yes.
But because you can only do that, you can only grow as much as your back end. But most businesses that are under, say, 100,000 a month, a lot of them have a big uptick, assuming that they have a good way to be able to collect sales.
Sure. Right. And of course.
And everything else. So it's very dependent upon that, but you're going to create a lot more engagement around you and your brand and all these types of things right from the get-go.
And so let's say that, like, I guess this is my last question on this, because we've gone long. Let's say, like, I'm currently I'm using webinar. I'm using like Webinar Jam or one of those, and I'm doing Facebook advertising. And so now, like, I hear this strategy. I like this strategy. What would my next steps be to actually create a different lead gen device and move people to that, or do I?
I would actually, if they're coming on a webinar, think about this. They're more in like slow lane, fast lane. So I would just edit the strategy where like half of it is what I told you before, and then half of it is sales. Right. I actually have if you want, it's not like and I'm more than happy to give these to you that can be included on a file or whatever it might be, but I actually have a step-by-step what you should do if you have a webinar with Omnipresence. I'm happy to share with everyone for free.
Yeah, let's definitely include that. That'd be great.
I'll get that. And so it's a modification that I did of basically, hey, here's what you should do if you have a webinar. Don't go and change your whole funnel. Just, change the way that you're actually, using this with it.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be really great. And because I know a lot of people are doing that as like a pseudo lead gen / customer acquisition kind of front door to their business. Any questions that I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, I mean, I think this is, it's one of the easiest things that people unfortunately don't do. They don't do it. It's kind of like this. It's like, this is like investing in your business, because the result isn't instant, meaning, it takes 30, 60, 90 days for this to have a return on investment. And,
Which
if
is pretty
anyone,
fast for a return on investment. But
it is, but not in the, everyone's
right,
looking for the thing that they can do in a weekend.
right,
And this is much longer term. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they put it to the back, they put it to the wayside. And then when they actually implement it and they look back in like 90 days, they're like, oh, wow, that actually worked.
yeah,
And so you got to have a little bit more of an investment focused. And of course you come from, if you're here and you're listening to this and you're making, a couple $100,000 a month, it's a lot less of investment, ROI
yeah,
time. But, if you're here doing 20,000 or 10,000 a month, you're like, oh, I need to, it's like, you need to do this no matter what stage you're at.
yeah. And it's a lot less expensive than most people realize.
Absolutely.
And it really is, another way of thinking about it is you're combining branding with direct response. Your
Absolutely.
sales letters, your VSLs, it's all, direct response. But how they think about you, how they think about their problem, how they think about your solution, comes down to marketing, and it should be done outside of a sales letter to be most effective. So I just want to thank you for laying out this strategy and this plan. I know how effective it is. You are proof positive itself of that. And look forward to talking to you more over the course of the year and getting some other strategies from you. And any last words as we say goodbye?
That's all. If you're listening to this, go execute it, go do it. Entrepreneurs that execute and just go and do are the ones that typically succeed versus the ones that obsess about, all the little details. So always fail forward. That's all I can end the note on.
And if they want more, it's just your name, Scott Oldford, OLDFORD @.com.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. ScottOldford.com. And thanks for doing this, Scott. And really looking forward to hearing how people benefit from it and the results they get.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And cancel that. Hold on.